Now we're going to continue with our sessions on the advanced lateral exercises. And I'm so fortunate to have Ruth Hogan-Polson helping me again. She's going to be helping me on my moshi. And I want to talk about half pass. Remember our little formula as far as these advanced lateral exercises are concerned. Bend plus sideways equals engagement. Engagement refers to the bending of the joints of the hind legs. So when the joints of the hind legs bend, the croup lowers, the withers come up, and then we have the sixth ingredient in the training scale, which is collection. So I always find it kind of interesting when I ask people in clinics, I say, well, what are you doing in your work? And they'll say, well, I've started shoulder in, and I've started haunches in, but I haven't started half pass yet. And I find that kind of puzzling because, as I mentioned with the shoulder in and the haunches in, all of these exercises are related to each other. They're either brothers and sisters or near cousins, and they're all related to the 10-meter circle. If your horse, let's back up a little bit, if your horse can do a 10-meter circle, which means that he doesn't evade the bend of the circle by either swinging his haunches out or swinging his haunches in, and therefore not maintaining that arc around your inner leg, you can do shoulder in, because all shoulder in is the first step of a 10-meter circle continued along a straight line. Well, if you can do that 10-meter circle, you can do haunches in, right, Moshe? Because all haunches in is the last step of a 10-meter circle continued along a straight line. So if you can do haunches in, there is no reason you shouldn't be able to do half pass, because all half pass is that same haunches in you did down the long side, but you've turned so that you're going across a diagonal line in the ring, and you pretend that's your solid wall, you pretend that's your rail, and you do haunches in on the diagonal line rather than on the straight line. So if I were strong enough and I could pull in that end of the arena to the other corner, and you would imagine, for example, that I was working in a triangle. This is one long side from like R to F. We're not going to use the whole ring. R to F, and then I were to go from K to R, and I was working on a triangle, and we did haunches in on that diagonal line from K to R. Basically, that's what you're doing, your half pass. And remember what I've said before. If you're doing low quality shoulder in, haunches in, half pass, chances are you're not going to make your shoulder and haunches in half pass better by practicing shoulder and haunches in half pass. Chances are the quality that's lacking, the quality that makes the exercise challenging for the horse, is the fact that he's bending while he's going sideways. So it's very important that we, first of all, know whether or not the horse is bending, and some exercises that we can use in order to improve his bending. But getting back to bending, let's talk about the bending aids. It's the same bending aids we've talked about even when we were starting on our 20-meter circles. If Ruth and Moshe were circling to the left, her weight would be on her left seat bone. Her left leg would be on the girth as a pole for Moshe to bend around. She would indicate what we call a +1 flexion, that his face is just 1 inch to the inside with a little turn of the key. But she needs to have that marriage between inner and outer aids so that he doesn't overbend his neck. His neck stays along the arc of the circle. And then her outer leg, pretend this is her outer leg, and now she's going to the right. Her outer leg is back to the degree that it needs to be back to curve the back end of the horse around the arc of the 10-meter circle. So that's what your bending aids do, and that's what you need to maintain as you start your haunches in on the diagonal line, which is really your half pass. So once again, like with all these advanced lateral exercises, your inner aids are responsible for bend, and your outer aids are responsible for angle. So as you're starting your half pass, you would be closing your outside hand in a fist and giving a tiny little push with your outside leg. But I'm going to qualify that tiny little push as we do some of the exercises. Now, there are a couple of different ways that you can make your entry into your half pass. And there's different schools of thought, and I'm going to show you the two different ways, or Ruth Moshe is going to show you the two different ways to get into your half pass, and then you decide what works best for your horse. The first thing, and the most traditional thing that you see, is that riders start the half pass from a shoulder 4 position, which means the horse is on 4 tracks. Inside front leg makes a separate track, inside hind leg makes a separate track, outside foreleg makes a separate track, outside hind makes a separate track. And the reason we start with a shoulder 4 is, number one, we have the bend, but number two, in a half pass, even though the horse's body is basically parallel to the rail, if we had freeze frame photography, we would see that the front legs come into the track just a moment before the hind legs. If the hind legs come into the track first, it means that the horse has lost the engagement of his inside hind. And in other words, he's stepping with his inside hind this way, opening the joints, unloading the hind leg, rather than bending those joints and stepping under the heavy point of the body. So the correct alignment for the horse in the half pass is basically with bend. The horse's body is parallel to the rail, but the forehand is slightly in advance. And that's why shoulder 4 is a nice exercise to start. Those are the pros of starting the half pass with a shoulder 4. The con is, think about the way the front legs of the horse move if I'm doing right shoulder 4. When the horse has to go from right shoulder 4 into right half pass, he has to switch which way he's moving his front legs. And unless you have a really, really balanced horse, you risk having a rhythm fault when you do that. And you know from our study of the training scale, rhythm is the first ingredient in the training scale. So if you decide to try this entry into your half pass from the shoulder 4, and you feel that your horse does not maintain his metronome-like rhythm, then I'll show you another exercise that we can do that will make it easy for him. So Ruth, if you could just walk off down that long side and do a little bit of shoulder 4, maybe from R to B, and then from the shoulder 4, you're going to take him into a few steps of half pass. So 4-track shoulder 4, good. Bending aids on, and when she gets ready to start, good, her half pass, she steps down into the inside iron, that's very good, so that her weight is going in the direction of movement, very good, straight ahead, then you can turn and do the same thing. And she takes him a little bit with her outside rein, so the predominant aids to take him sideways are inner leg, outer rein, and I'll talk about that later. So once again, shoulder 4, and then step down into your inner iron, beautiful with your body weight. You see how she takes her body weight in the direction of movement, lovely, lovely. And because he wants her to stay centered above him, he follows her body weight, that's super, and then comes straight ahead. Now, if you find when you're doing this, for example, in the trot, you risk a rhythm fault, then you want to try a different exercise. So turn a little early and just go straight, as if you're changing the rein across the diagonal. And then, when you're 1 horse's length onto the diagonal, ask for right haunches in, keeping his forehand exactly on the diagonal line. So they're straight, and then right haunches in. Good. Good. And, yeah, good. Go all the way to the center line. Then go straight ahead and turn left, and we'll do that on the left rein. Straight ahead. And turn left somewhere and start across a diagonal line with his body absolutely straight, as if he's just changing the rein across the diagonal. And when you have 1 horse's length on the diagonal, left haunches in with your bending aids. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Good, just to the center line and then straight ahead. So those are 2 different ways that you can get into your half pass, and you still know that you have the forehand in line with the hindquarters. Now just stop for a second so I can just talk about what we're going to do next. You saw this last exercise. This is a really good exercise if you have to work by yourself for you to tell whether or not your horse is really maintaining bend. If you remember from our lessons on shoulder in and haunches in, we always look at one half of the horse, depending on which exercise we're doing, to see if the horse is really doing the exercise in true bend, or if he's cheating a little bit and evading the bend and actually just doing a leg yield. Now, in the haunches in, we know the part that we look at is the front end of the horse. So that if all we saw was the front end of the horse and something was blocking our vision back here, this would not give us enough information to know if the horse was just going straight down the long side or he was in haunches in. If the rider is fudging bend because the horse isn't given his rib cage and we see the neck of the horse come too much to the inside so he doesn't look like he's going straight down the long side, then we know that it's not true bend. Same thing applies for the half pass because all it is a haunches in a different place in the ring on a diagonal line. Our reference point is the front end of the horse. So a great exercise for you to do is similar to the one that we just did, but very, very frequent transitions from straight on the diagonal to 2 or 3 steps of haunches in, back to straight on the diagonal to 2 or 3 steps of haunches in. And what I want you all to focus on are his front legs. Are his shoulders pointed to the same spot when she does haunches in as they are when she's just changing rein across the diagonal? Sort of like he has headlights on his shoulders. Are his front feet pointed exactly to the same spot? You might not be able to tell when you're in the haunches in, but if his front feet have gone out a little bit, when she brings him back to straight on the diagonal line, his forehand will have to shift position to get on the diagonal. So let's try that once in each direction. Alternating, straight for a few strides, haunches in for a few strides, straight for a few strides, haunches in for a few strides. And I like this because it helps the rider self-correct. If you feel that the forehand swiveled out to the left in this case when you go to straighten him, then you will self-correct with your aids and have a slightly different influence, good, of the aids in order to keep the forehand on the line. And once more, good, and straight, good. So this time, Ruth, do it wrong. So come straight first. Then when you ask for the haunches to come in, let his forehand go out a little bit so we can see the correction when you straighten him again. Because this is what I often see. So she's coming straight. She's going to ask his haunches to come to the left, but you see how his shoulders went off to the right? Now watch what happens when she straightens him back to the diagonal. He had to swivel his shoulders back to the right. And do that incorrectly again. Do that so well, my dear. And straight, and watch his shoulders, everybody. They had to move to the left. Now turn left, Ruth, and just trot down just to save time. Trot down to the end of the long side, and then just do it correctly on that diagonal. That's pretty. Very pretty. Good. And then walk. And you'll compare this diagonal to the last one she did. So watch his shoulders. They're like headlights. And his front feet. And straight. And the forehand should stay in the same spot. And haunches in. Keep the forehand on the line. Very good. And straighten. Now you compare that diagonal, people, to the last one she did. Once more. Good. And straight. Well done. Okay, just stay in the walk around me close enough so you can hear what I'm going to say. A lot of times people get so wound up thinking half pass is this big psychologically difficult thing to do. I want to show you that if you can do haunches in, which most people don't find particularly difficult, you can do half pass because, like I said, half pass is just haunches in on a diagonal line instead of on a straight line. So what you're going to do is you're going to go down the long side in haunches in, like between 2 sets of letters, and then keep the exact same bending aids on, but just gently swivel his forehand onto a diagonal and just continue off in a half pass so that The riders can see and feel that the bending aids and the angle aids for the half pass is identical for the bend and the angle aids for the haunches in. Good. Little bit more haunches. Now swivel his forehand around, but keep that bend. And make his shoulders look at K. Beautiful. Good. Good. And then at the center line, go straight. And then from F to P, haunches in. So as she comes through the corner, remember every corner should be ridden like it's 1/4 of a 10-meter circle. She checks her bending aids, weight on the inner seat bone, inner leg on the girth, little flexion to the left with the inner wrist, supporting outer rein, outer leg back, and swivel his forehand onto this diagonal line, and the aids should feel exactly the same. And actually, swivel him back and go haunches in straight ahead on the quarter line. That's another exercise that you can add to it. Good. So if you, good, and then straight ahead and let him relax his muscles. You should be able to swivel from your haunches in into your half pass into your haunches in because it's the same exercise, it's just in a different place in the arena. Now, while Moshe has a chance to relax his neck, I want to give you my favorite increase of the bend exercise for half passes. I love this for 2 reasons. Number one, it really encourages the bend for the horse. But number 2, and I alluded to this earlier, it makes sure that the rider uses the predominant aids correctly. Because as I've said, with every exercise we do with the horse, all your aids have a job. Some are active, however, and some are passive. And the tendency for most riders is that they focus on the active aids and they abandon the horse with the passive aids. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that riders make when they do half pass is they make the predominant aids inside rein, right, Moshe? Inside rein, and then they try to push the horse sideways with the outside leg. Now, I want to show you why that's a disaster in the making. First of all, see what he's doing with his neck? If you use your, thank you for demonstrating that, Moshe. If you use too much inner rein, you do not have uniform bend from pole to tail. The horse overbends his neck just like Moshe. See, he's been doing enough of these sessions now. He knows how to demonstrate all on his own. So the horse will overbend the neck, and then the bend isn't uniform through the horse's body. If you push the horse sideways with your outside leg, a couple of things will happen. If I'm pushing Moshe to the left because my right leg is behind the girth and I want him to go sideways, he takes that left hind leg and steps this way. It's an unengaged or disengaged use of the inside hind leg rather than bending the joints and stepping under the heavy point of the body. Also, think about what happens. If you push with your outer leg, where does your body weight go? It falls over that outside leg. So then you end up giving your horse contradictory signals. Your leg is saying, go that way, but because your body weight is getting left behind, it's saying, but I won't let you go that way. And then the horse, because he's struggling, loses his impulsion, and the rider thinks, oh, my horse has such a hard time going forward in the half pass, but it's because you are holding him back. It's like you're asking him to go forward with the emergency brake on because your body is leaning in the wrong direction. The predominant aids in the half pass should be inner leg to outer rein. You should always have that feeling with every step of the half pass that you're riding your horse from your inner leg to your outer rein. And as you saw Ruth do, it's you're stepping down into the inside iron, taking your horse with your body weight and taking him with the outside rein close to the withers. That predominantly sends him sideways. Yes, your outer leg has to be behind the girth, and yes, your outer leg helps a little bit with the sideways going. But I want you to think that the more important job of the outer leg is it's there to help bend the horse around the inner leg. So take a lot of the responsibility of the sideways pushing out of your outer leg and put it into your body weight and your outside rein. So that being said, the exercise I'm going to show you, which accomplishes all those things. It increases the bend for the horse, and it teaches the rider the feeling of having the predominant aids being inner leg, outer rein, rather than inner rein pushing the horse sideways with the outer leg. And that exercise is going to be that you're going to do leg yield with a bend to half pass to leg yield with a bend to half pass. The more important part of the exercise are the leg yield with a bend steps. So you might do 3 or 4 leg yield with a bend, and then only 2 steps a half pass, and then 3 or 4 leg yield with the bend, because the more steps we stay in the leg yield with a bend, the more the horse curves around your inner leg, and the more you learn the feel of pushing the horse from inner leg to outer rein. So let's do that from this quarter line. So her inner leg, her right leg's going to stay on the girth, as opposed to a traditional leg yield, because she's bending him. So she bends him to the right from nose to tail, pushing him sideways with a lot of bend. Yep, and then take him with your body weight in the outside rein, just 2 steps. Now push him off your right leg. He fell through your right leg. Good. His haunches have to be more toward the house. That's it. That was better. Now push him off your right leg before he falls through it. It's a very normal mistake for the horse to fall through your inner leg, and that's why we do this exercise. Good. And push him away. Keep the same bend. Good. Come down the next quarter line and do it. A little higher with the pole if you can. Yep. And really curve him from nose to tail. His butt should go to the field. And push him toward the house. Perfect. Take him with your body weight and left rein. Awesome. And push him away from your right leg. Yeah, it's getting better and better. You can already see that this long side is better than the other long side. Good. And each time he moves away from her right leg, he's bending more, and she's also getting the feeling of putting her inner leg close to his body so that it's there when she asks him to move away. Very good. Super. Okay, you can stop there, unless you want to do that the other way. That's good. I think that was a really good progression, because he didn't want to bend so much through the right side of his body on this long side, and by the time she did it a couple of times, this long side was perfect. And that's an example of what we always talk about, that repetition of an exercise is the mildest form of punishment. So we don't get all hysterical that he was falling on her right leg down there. We just quietly repeat the exercise until he does it with more bend like that. So those are 3 exercises that will help you with your bend. And now I want to talk about your angle. I want you, we've talked about with the use of the aids, how using the 2 hands laterally as a unit. For example, you want to bring the shoulders to the left, left shoulder in. 2 arms to the right, right shoulder in, with the hands staying equidistant from the body. And that focuses on this area of his body. So, remember what I said about in your half pass, the forehand should be slightly in advance with the horse basically parallel to the rail. Well, sometimes the haunches trail, and sometimes the haunches lead. You can help put the body in the right alignment, not only with your leg, but by controlling the position of the 2 shoulders by using your 2 arms as a unit. Another thing, those of you who compete will find that oftentimes as you're doing a half pass, as you get closer and closer to the rail, the horse sees the rail coming and starts to lose his bend and trail his hindquarters more and more. So this, in schooling only, is a good exercise to do, where as you get closer and closer to the rail, you actually retard or slow the shoulders down so that the hindquarters, just in schooling, remember, lead for a moment. But if you know that you can adjust the position of the horse's shoulders a little bit more forward and a little bit more in advance, then you can do that without having to push so hard with your outer leg. So let's say the haunches are trailing. Rather than pushing so hard with your outer leg, which is going to make him leg yield and your body's going to fall the wrong way, you can slow the shoulders down by taking your 2 arms away from the direction the horse is going. Now, that's one of the advantages of taking your 2 arms away from the direction the horse is going. You can retard the shoulders so the haunches catch up. You'll also find that it will help you with the bend through your horse's side. The primary negative to holding your hands over there is, watch what happens to my shoulders as I do that. Okay, I tip down on my inside shoulder. So yes, you'll improve the bend. Yes, you'll hurry up the hindquarters because you're slowing down the forehand, but holding your hands away from the direction the horse is going puts him on the forehand, which is exactly the opposite of what we want to do in the half pass. So the ideal thing when you do a half pass is that if you're doing right half pass, your right hand is in front of your right hip and your left hand is close to the withers, so that the horse can do the half pass up in the bridle rather than down on the bit because you're holding your hands sideways. But this is a really good rider exercise just to learn the feeling of being able to control the horse's shoulders with this lateral movement of your two arms. So if you want, just trot down, straight down the long side and come toward us from K with that exercise so we can see you slow the haunches, slow the shoulders down and speed the shoulders up. Well, no, yes, sorry. Just go down to K and then come on the diagonal in the walk. So start normal. Good. Now slow the shoulders down so his haunches lead. Good. Now speed the shoulders up so his shoulders are in the right place. Good. Now slow the shoulders down. 2 arms to the left so the haunches lead. Good girl. And then 2 arms to the right. Lovely. And 2 arms to the left. Good. So you can see that you can influence the alignment of the horse's body by moving his shoulders either left or right, depending on whether he trails the hindquarters or loses his bend. So let's just stop there for a second, take a little break. So just by way of having a little review here, I want you to think about the fact that if you can do a 10-meter circle, you can do a half pass. Because if you can do a 10-meter circle, you can do the last step of the 10-meter circle, which is simply haunches in. And if you can do haunches in, then you can do half pass, because all half pass is haunches in on a diagonal line. But remember, horses, like people, are rarely ambidextrous. They have one hind leg that's stronger than the other. So it's very important that you have some kind of markers in your arena so that the degree that you go sideways in your left half pass is equal to the degree you go sideways in your right half pass. And you can, it's your choice, you can make your entry into your half pass either from a shoulder 4 or just turn straight on the diagonal, then add in the haunches in, knowing that if you need to increase bending aids, we're talking about your inner aids. If you need to increase your angle aids, we're talking about your outside aids. But more often than not, the thing that makes half passes not achieve as much as we want them to achieve is that we don't have enough bend. So anything you can do, even doing a half pass for 3 steps and turning onto a 10-meter circle and continuing on the half pass and turning onto a 10-meter circle, will help you with your bend and your haunches in. But then always, I think, go back to my favorite exercise, which is the one you just saw, the next to the last exercise you just saw, where we leg yield with a bend, which not only increases the bend, but gets the rider giving the half pass with the predominant aids being the correct set of aids, inner leg, outer rein. So, Ruth, thank you so much. And Moshe, you're a perfect half pass pony. He's saying hello to the camera.